Well, I want to segue from last week. It was a topic that opened up a whole stream of intentionality around how important this message that I shared with you last week, which essentially was that spirituality, and it probably goes without saying, except that it doesn't, is a moment-to-moment path. It's a moment-to-moment remembering. It is not something that we can categorize and compartmentalize and say, okay, it's Sunday, now it's my time for my spiritual life. And in this hour of power, I will restore all the years the locusts have eaten and all the errant thoughts that I've had and when I've forgotten who I am, and I'll bring them all back and get them all flying in the right direction, and I'll be whole and complete and peaceful, and it'll last me for 167 hours until next Sunday, and I'll be good to go. Because we know it doesn't work that way, and yet somehow we live that way because it feels like spirituality requires this sort of intentionality, this sort of that we have to like block out time from the busyness of our life, that our schedule doesn't really permit for us to do the kind of justice to a spiritual life, a conscientious spiritual life that time would allow, and so we just don't do it. And yet, the teaching is not that we have to become a consummate meditator, or that we have to be in focused, proper posture prayer with our hands clasped and looking wistfully up to the heavens or something like that in order for us to be engaged mindfully and heartfully into spiritual life. So to remember that is true is to call us back to the kind of spirituality that really can make a difference in our life, that's quite accessible and quite possible and even practicable. It took me 3 times to get that out. It's something that we can actually do. And it's been sort of been in my face in the last several weeks as I work with my own teachers and teachings, and the reminder came to me, just recently that I had objected to this particular teacher that I was talking with, and I said, I have such a busy life. I said, it's, really hard for me to devote as much time as I would like to my spiritual life. Has anyone ever said that? I imagine I might be speaking to a few of you out there. And what he reminded me of was that how long does it take to pause and remember the truth? Not how long does it take to clear your calendar and have an hour designated or a half hour designated where the house is quiet and you can light the candles and sit in front of your altar. No, not. How long does it take to create an altar in consciousness? A second, a moment. And that moment can make all the difference, particularly when we begin to string those moments together, so that we do, as the Apostle Paul said, we pray without ceasing. We pray without ceasing. In other words, life becomes a prayer instead of prayer being an activity that is scheduled and intentional according to a particular space in time that we carve out for that practice. It's about 80 years ago that a guy by the name of, a spiritual teacher by the name of Emmett Fox wrote a little pamphlet called The Golden Key. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's been used by thousands and thousands of people over the decades. And what's so remarkable about The Golden Key, and I wanted to share that with you today for the reason of my talk, but also to let you know that Unity has come out with a little booklet. We have a stack of these on the connection spot. It's called The Golden Key for Today. And what this is sort of a modern day interpretation of what it means to turn our attention away from our problems in our life, those things which draw us down, draw us into negativity, draw us into doubt, draw us into fear, to take our mind, to take our attention off of those things and put them on God or put them on truth. And that shift, that little shift that seems to be too simple for it to be effective is actually what my spiritual teacher was trying to tell me. That every master teacher has proclaimed is that if truth is constant, then so should be your attention to it. If truth came and went, then your attention could go and come with spirit, and you would be spot on with your synchronicity. But if truth is constant, if the presence and the power and the love of God is a constant in our life, if it is its actually source of our life, it never goes away, it never limits, it never fades, it never drops down, it never goes anywhere, and the only thing that varies is our recognition of it, and that puts the onus on who? On us. On us, on me. It puts the onus on me to say, in this moment, where am I putting my attention? What am I focused on? What am I looking at? Am I focused on this problem and trying to solve it to the nth degree? And maybe there's a time for that, but have I first turned to the truth that has no problem with my problem? See, the truth has no problem with your problem. There's no problems in the infinite realm of love and truth and wholeness and peace. There is no problem. So would it not make sense if we're trying to solve our problem that our attention goes where there is no problem? And that we might immerse ourselves in that consciousness, and out of that sense of peacefulness, out of that sense of feeling this essential well-being that's primary, that's under the surface mind in which problems we're very much aware of, that if we can touch into that well of well-being, even for a moment, then that can inform the conscious mind. That can inform that which then can set about to find whatever solution there may be. But if I'm focused on the problem, have we noticed that the more we focus on the problem, the bigger the problem gets? Thank you, Agris. The bigger the problem gets, because we just know it's a law that what we put our attention on tends to what? Expand and grow. So where do we want our attention, where do we want to grow in our life? It's so freaking simple, right? I mean, it really is. This is not anything complicated. It's not esoteric theology, like put your attention on what it is you want to expand and grow. Take your attention off of that which you'd like to shrink. Because problems are only made in the mind. Now, there are situations. There are certainly challenges in the human life. But the problem gets made in the mind. The problem is there's something going on that I don't like, and this is when the situation becomes a problem, was when I say there's something going on in my life, and I can't be okay with that going on in my life. That's when it becomes a problem. It doesn't become a problem by its very nature, by the fact that there's some lack of something, lack of love, lack of money, lack of whatever. Because in spiritual truth, if I'm connected with the truth of my being, there is no lack of abundance. There's no lack of love. There's no lack of peace. And so the problem, if we know the problem exists in the mind, then the last thing that I should be doing is trying to cogitate on this problem and trying to figure it out, unless I have first been washed clean of the notion that it's actually a problem. That I might have a recognition that the problem does not exist in the mind of God or in the kingdom of heaven or in the consciousness of the truth of my being, that problem does not exist. It does not have a real foundation. It does not have any truth in it. It is something that will come and go in the varieties and the vagaries of the experience on the human scene. It shall not last. Only truth lasts. Only love lasts. Only peace lasts. These are the conditions of putting our attention on God when we're facing a problem. And it does require a certain kind of motivation. Maybe that's the word. I think that like any kind of a new practice or discipline, we don't usually do it until we realize it's costing us too much to continue doing it the old way. Do we know that? And if you've gotten into an exercise program or something and you keep starting the resolutions on January 1st, and by January 14th or 15th, you're like, not so much. Maybe I'll go in February. This is a bad month for me, so you're kind of talking yourself out of it until the day comes, like I spoke with someone recently, one of our congregation, had a heart problem and had major surgery done, and the doctor said to him, "You need to get on an exercise program." And he said, "I will start as soon as you say I can." And do we believe him? Yes, because he was told that his exercise was a lifeline to his life, to his physical life. If we understand that this need to pay attention to our spiritual reality is a lifeline to everything that we really want out of life, which is peace and wholeness and love and a sense of well-being, if we know that our lifeline depends on a regular practice, then we'll do it. The thing is, maybe you haven't reached that point yet. I always sort of silently celebrate when someone comes to me in counseling and says, "I'm just at the end of my rope. I don't know anymore how to go on. I'm really looking for an answer." And I silently celebrate, because I know for those people that when they come to the end of the thought system, their own mind, trying to figure their life out, that they are ripe for new insight, for spiritual insight. Because when we have gone as far as we can go, like the prodigal son, living this life that we think would be the perfect life, and we get there and we find out that we're feeling empty and alone and we're hungering and we're thirsting and we can't satisfy ourselves anymore with that particular kind of life, then we are primed for that awakening. We are in a perfect consciousness to turn around and turn back. So, like someone said, things don't have to get worse before they get better. Let's hope not. What if we just grab that insight now? I was beginning to feel like I was just frustrated with my spiritual life. I felt like I wasn't growing. Does anyone have that? They're sort of flatlining, not flatlining in terms of dead, but sort of at a plateau. And I thought to myself, I've been on this path for an awfully long time, and I feel like there's something deeper and wider and more consistent than what I would call a variety of highs and lows, where I would be sometimes swept up with a feeling of peace and love and all is well. And other times I would feel very human and very bereft of peace. And it felt just a little bit too roller coaster-like, And this very simple teaching was given to me, and I just can't emphasize it enough. It's been helping me through the ordinary days, the ordinary moments of my life. And I just ask myself throughout the day, whenever this mind of mine, which just loves to, spin stories and be caught up in the future and in the past and everything else, if I can just catch it for a moment and say, where is my attention right now? And can I bring my attention into the inner realm of my heart, into what the Golden Key says, put your attention on God. And for a lot of people, they go, I don't know how to do that because I don't know what God is. Can you explain God, and then I'll put my attention on it? Nobody can understand that sort of nebulous word. But we can understand peace beyond human understanding. We can understand a peace that pervades. We can understand love, unconditional love. We've all had moments of those in our life. That's what we put our attention on, because that is what is already resident, already imbued and embedded in you and I. But there is this peace that resides, that abides. And we have to abide in that knowing. When we abide in that knowing, then it refreshes, it renews me, it reminds me that all is well, here and now. So I commend this practice to you, and these books are available. We have a stack of them out in the connection spot, as I mentioned. If we do run out today and you'd like one, you can email the church. We'll get some more for you. And what this little booklet has is modern day versions of how people have used that in their life, very practical ways in terms of relationships and financial struggles, and how it transforms us from the inside. Isn't that the last place we sometimes look? But the recognition is that so within, so without. To stop trying to fix our lives from outside in, because the effects of life is not the cause of our problem. We need to stay at the level of cause. God is cause. God is source. Spirit, love, whatever you want to call it. And we're working out here at the level of effects. You can do that. I mean, you can fix your relationships, and you can, you can make some peace with the situation in your life, and you can get a better job, and you can make more money, and you can do these things, and no one is suggesting that you shouldn't put your efforts there. But don't you know that even if you got them all fixed, that there's a really good chance that tomorrow, the next day, sometime soon, there would be a new problem that would emerge. And it would ask you, now what are we going to do? And if the only reaction and modality of approach to our problems is to try to fix them outside of ourselves, we're going to exhaust ourselves and probably end up sick and tired. But if we can turn to that source of peace and well-being that is within us, then we constantly have that ability to resolve the problem where the problem really is, which is within. To experience a sense of connection, experience a deeper kind of love, a sense of possibility and well-being that transcends circumstances and situations, that somehow remains our connection with truth. It remains our life raft through the stormy seas. I had all kinds of things I was going to read to you this morning, but I think I'll just close with a prayer. So I invite you to put everything down for a moment and just be receptive to what is. So we trust and know that there is something greater than what appears when we open our eyes and look at the world and the circumstances and the ups and downs of life. We trust this, and as we go deeper into this awareness, we begin to tap into a peaceful stream, just as if you were to go out into a rushing river, and you would see on the surface the white water and the swirling water as it was passing over all the rocks and the uneven surfaces. And yet if you could get to the bottom of that river, you would find that it was much quieter. Same in the ocean, the waves crashing in a stormy sea, but deep in that ocean, there is a quiet, there is a stillness, there is a peace that is not troubled by the water on the surface. And this is us. This is what we've come to remember again. This is the deep dive that you and I are invited to in every moment that we remember that life cannot be evaluated solely on the surface. Jesus said, do not judge by appearances, but by righteous judgment. And that righteous judgment sends us deep inside ourselves, into our heart, into that abiding place of spirit, and that place where nothing really can touch us, nothing can limit us, that there are no real problems, there are no real limitations, that this truth, this love, this power, this presence cannot fade, cannot be diminished in any way. It's what we were before we came into this body. It's what will always exist beyond the day we take our last breath on this earth. It is who we really are. Who we really are. That is the question in every moment. Who am I? Who am I really? Not as the world proclaims, not the name that was given to me on my physical birth, not the job that I hold, not my relationships, my roles in life, all of those things that were added unto me. But when I seek first my original nature, who am I? When the consciousness of being is the only place that I seek this knowing. Who am I? Just to be. To be and to know that I am is to restore the deepest recognition of our spiritual reality. Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. What is the I am of you? That sense that you exist. Not I am this or I am that, but just I am. So we know that life will offer us challenges and opportunities in the days ahead. Yet there is this place in us that is deep and will not be moved by what happens on the surface. May we remember to turn within, to get our truth from this remembrance that is within us. To allow Spirit to reveal to us the truth of our being. And then to bring the truth of that being to bear on our life is to imbue our decisions, our perceptions, our relationships with love, with wisdom, with peace, with a kind of perfection that knows that nothing, no matter what, can disturb this calm peace of my soul. It is in this knowing that we are transformed, that our lives become an adventure. And the challenges that limited us before only take us deeper into this quest for wholeness, the very reason for our life. And so it is.